Report showed no signs of collusion. GOP leadership now demanding answers on why the investigation was started in the first place and when and what the Obama team knew regarding Russia's interference in our 2016 election. Here's Senator Lindsey Graham.
Did they exonerate Clinton because they had a political bias? Did they ignore all the facts because if they indict her, they know she can't beat Trump and they wanted Trump to lose? Was the counterintelligence investigation a backdoor way of spying on Trump? There's real no evidence of working with Russia. They just used it as an excuse.
John Brennan, who was the head of the CIA at the time, went on to become one of Trump's most vocal critics and heavily pushed these collusion claims. He was asked about that yesterday.
I don't know if I received bad information, but I think I suspected that there was more than there actually was.
And here's former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper on whether he regrets attacking President Trump while also deflecting responsibility for the Russian interference.
I do have concerns about the president's unwillingness or inability or whatever to call out the Russian interference in the election. One of President Obama's objectives in tasking us to do that report on the Russian interference was to hand it off to the next administration. So the Trump administration would have that as a basis for taking action against Russia, which sort of hasn't happened in some ways.
Counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, blasting these Obama officials earlier today.
Those people at the DOJ and the FBI at the time, they have besmirched the good reputations and integrity of the 25,000 to 35,000 men and women who work in that department and do their jobs honorably. The Obama administration and the president himself knew that Russia was trying to interfere in our election and did nothing about it.
And when the president was asked earlier if he thought the decision to investigate made it all the way to the West Wing of the Obama White House, here's what he said.
I don't want to say that, but I think you know the answer.
All right, Jesse, do you know the answer?
Yes, it was Obama. You want anything else?
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I got this.
So, deep state.
I got this. Listen,
Okay.
This was not an intelligence failure like a WMD or a 9/11. This was an intelligence plot that was foiled. What's so funny, Juan?
Deep state. I think even Greg said deep state.
You know,
Is that all
everybody was mocking the deep state phrase for the last 2 years, and now I'm totally vindicated.
How's that?
Because, Juan, there was no collusion.
Oh,
and anytime
my
you
God.
said the word deep state, you were laughed at for being a conspiracy theorist.
But you
guess who the conspiracy theorist was? Your side.
But let me
finish.
your guy's been cleared.
Of course you want it to stop. Yeah, once he's cleared, now let's stop. Let's not look back, okay? No. This is what it was. The Obama administration, they weren't trying to catch Russians interfering with the election. They were trying to catch Trump officials colluding with Russians to interfere with the election. This was a Democratic administration that used the CIA and the FBI to attack a Republican presidential campaign. It all started with Hillary and the dossier. As many as 4 Trump officials were illegally surveilled and contacted by the CIA. And then when she lost, they used this as an insurance policy to reverse the election results. Trump caught wind of it, fired Comey, and was totally vindicated. And the only way the media now can vindicate themselves if they start putting resources into actually investigating what went wrong instead of trying to, you know, brush it off and say, let's move on.
Let me tell you how deep state this deep state is. The ghost of Obama came out of the Lincoln bedroom, and he's the one that fired James Comey. He's the one that started this criminal investigation as opposed to the counterintelligence investigation.
The counterintelligence investigation began under Obama's watch.
Yes, that's different.
Crooked from
That's
the jump.
different, and in other words, you wouldn't have had Mueller unless Trump fired Comey. That had nothing to do with any deep state, nothing to do with Obama.
And you wouldn't have had Comey investigating Trump if it wasn't for the dossier. Cooked up by Hillary and laundered through the Obama White House.
Morgan, what came first, the chicken or the egg?
Oh, well, hopefully we can get that answer today. Listen, out of everybody at this table, I actually disagree with you slightly on that, this not being a 9/11 or a WMD failure from the intelligence community. I think it is of that level. And I speak as someone, I've been in the intelligence community since I was like 25 years old, I think 26 years old. And one of the things that you're taught as an analyst when you come in is what were the failures, the analytic failures that happened leading up to 9/11 and WMD, and how did we miss all of this? this. And what I have suspected for a long time is these leaders of the FBI and the CIA and the DNI, they forgot the basic analytic lessons that you learn as a junior analyst when there was definitely a lot of red flags there. For sure there was red flags because of what the Russians were doing. And it was the Russians that were trying to infiltrate. So they see all of this malign behavior from the Russians. They see a lot of red flags. And because of a lack of fully looking at the evidence, they jump to analytic conclusions about the president that I think are one of the most damaging things that any of us have ever seen in our lifetime. Let's not, sugarcoat this. They accuse the president of treason without having evidence to back it up. And as a person who has spent my life in the intelligence community, it is so damning to the men and women who are patriots, who go and try to do this work every day. And I think the stain that the American public has for the intelligence community because of these unethical political leaders can't be discounted.
My point was not that this wasn't a huge intelligence failure to the level of WMD or 9/11. I'm saying those were innocent mistakes and lapses. This was a devious plot hatched 2 years ago and now exposed. That's the difference.
No, it's not. If the country
I'm getting
is
Greg
under
in here no matter what happens. Somebody like a Brennan.
Yes.
Should he be held to a higher standard of commentary than your run-of-the-mill pundit?
Yes.
He was a CIA director.
Yes.
And he said, "Oh, whoops."
How do you? It's because people believed they were believing an hallucination, and this is why as a deep state cynic who is no longer a deep state cynic, you have to understand that there were a group of people who felt that they were so right that they could actually be undercover, that they could do sneaky things because they were saving the world. In their heads, they were superheroes, but they were actually deep state, because they were doing the wrong thing, but they didn't think they were doing the wrong thing. And the long-term damage here, the big story is there's a lot of damage between people and nations because of this. There were people who expected nothing less than war over this, or taking out a president who might be removing a president because he might be a Russian agent. That's how far the hallucination got. That's why people, when they laugh at the deep state, it's because they thought that they were doing right. When you're wearing a black hat, you think you're wearing a white hat. That's essentially what's going on. But I have to, Jesse's right. The deep state existed. They just didn't know they were deep state.
But I don't get it. The president says that Mueller acted honorably. And Mueller...
He's not deep state.
Wait a minute. Mueller a moment ago was deep state. Now he's not deep state.
I never said that.
Who said he was
This is
deep
all
state?
about vindictive. Are you kidding? You missed what Trump had to say about Mueller? Mueller was involved with Comey. Comey was involved, and that was a former FBI. This is such about... We've gone now from Trump doing a victory lap to vindictive actions by the right wing.
It's only Tuesday.
Yeah, we're not talking about Mueller. We're talking about Brennan,
Mueller's
Clapper,
off the hook now.
Comey, McCabe, Strzok.
Joining us from Atlanta is Georgia Congressman Doug Collins. He is the top Republican on the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, thanks for being here. Your reply to the chairman of your committee wanting to have the Attorney General testify.
If my chairman wants to call the Attorney General, I'm sure the Attorney General would come to the Hill. That's part of what oversight on the Judiciary Committee is. The problem I have with my chairman right now is on several occasions today he seems to be impugning the integrity of the Attorney General and implying that the Attorney General was not acting fairly in his own job. That is an issue that has been probably the more concerning part of today. Which should be good news for Americans, good news to know that there was no collusion, good news to know that there was no obstruction, and that their president, who has been working hard for them, is continuing to do that. That's the concerning part, but that's the good part also for America today.
That is the top line of this report, as the Attorney General described from the special counsel's report. But there is a focus on this obstruction part, as is reported that there was no exoneration, according to the special counsel. What do you make of that and the Attorney General's decision that there is not moving forward an obstruction of justice issue?
I make really nothing of it except what's in the letter itself. Let's let the letter speak for itself. Bill Barr, along with the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, made that determination after Robert Mueller, who the Democrats, by the way, have been protecting and not talking about, and talking about how great of an investigator was and a prosecutor he was. When he came to that conclusion, his own investigators found that they could not come to the reason of charging. They did not charge. They could not. They said it was an area where they were not willing to. So what they did is they didn't decline. What they said is they would have send it on. They did not not make a prosecutorial discretion or move. They said, we'll give it to the Attorney General for a look at. That's also good news in the sense that most of it, what the letter said, was also public. We will be seeing what went behind the obstruction issue. And I think that is a good thing for America. And I think it's also something that we allow to see that when we look at it, at the end of the day, this was following the law. Bill Barr has done everything by the book, and there's no reason to question that he would not continue to do so by the book.
The president on the tarmac from Florida said that this was a total exoneration. He also said he hopes that people will start looking into the other side, how all of this started, and he said it was an illegal takedown. There are people, Congressman, who wonder, when you had control, Republicans had control, why didn't that part of the investigation move forward? And is it going forward?
Well, Brett, it did move forward. We had an investigation between the Judiciary Committee and the Oversight Committee, of which, by the way, I've been releasing transcripts of those with Lisa Page and Peter Strzok and Bruce Orr. We want the American people to see how this came. That was the witch hunt. If there was a witch hunt in it, it was between that corrupt triumvirate of Page, Strzok, and McCabe that began this process. And they were there from the beginning in early 16 and following through. We're going to continue to press that case, but also at a certain point in time, we also are going to focus on the fact of also the other things that my friends across the aisle, the Democrats, have been saying. Think about what's been saying. Senator Blumenthal, Representative Swalwell, Waters, others who have been jumping on saying we have plenty of evidences of collusion. We know that collusion exists. And all of these statements now came crashing down in a very thorough investigation by Robert Mueller. My question is to Adam Schiff, who said just recently, we know that there's collusion. The indictments are probably coming. The collusion is there. Where's the apology, Mr. Schiff? Where's the apology saying there is no collusion? That's what I'd like to know.
On this front, the people who want to see that part of the investigation go forward, they wonder why the FISA documents that originated this entire investigation haven't come out. Do you think they will?
I think those are questions that we're asking right now, and that Bill Barr has committed in his confirmation hearings to look at that FISA abuse. That was one of the most enlightening parts for the confirmation hearings just a month or so ago with Bill Barr, was he was willing, when asked by Senator Graham, would he be willing to look into the FISA abuse and willing to look into the issues that we had found in the House through our investigations, would he be willing to look into it? And he said yes. And he confirmed that with me as well in a conversation that I've had. So we are looking forward to moving past this and making sure that the American people can trust their Department of Justice. Democrats, Republicans, and independents need to be aware that at the highest levels of the Department of Justice and the FBI, that justice is blind and doesn't wear a partisan tag.
Congressman Collins, we appreciate your time.
Brett, it's always good to be with you.